strain. Was it a bicycle? What is wrong with my brain? Is it the end of me? No, I must still believe. So I'm still in love, you see. Heck yeah, now I'm on my way. But let's stay focused, there's still a job in hand that we must do. Cameras start to click, we know what create is something new. So go Marty and Sarah and Mark and Matt, Owen, Smitty, McGrilly and Jamie and Lane in the Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. Stop the clock, we're done, we're rolling. Sound the horn and sing that we are going. 27 hours, that is the time. So let's hop on the bus and let it shine, 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 shine. Say sha la 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 la, 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 sha la 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 la. Good evening, folks. You are very welcome to Bandido Talks, live here on YouTube, 7 p.m. We are back for our second live stream of the weekend. It's some news on the tube. Of course, every Saturday and every Sunday we have our little news on the tube segment. So we're going to be getting into some common media articles. Common media, standard media, and we're going to try and extract lessons tonight out of this soup of modern day media. So that is the plan tonight. We are live, of course, every Friday, every Saturday, and every Sunday here on Bandido Talks at 7 p.m. here on YouTube. Should be a good show tonight. News on the tube is always interesting. It's interesting because the Bandido isn't quite sure what is going to greet him in terms of the news articles that come the direction of the Bandido from his Google Chrome browser, of course. So let's see what we're going to be greeted with tonight. But before we get into all of that, I want to say, if you enjoy our little Saturday and Sunday segment, News on the Tube, feel free to like the live stream tonight. If you are joining us live, I always say it, but feel free to get engaged with the live chat. When we have engagement with the show, it makes things a little more interesting, a little more entertaining, one could say. So if you're joining us live, get into the live chat, Leave your comments, leave your queries, leave your questions, leave whatever it is that you think is relevant or not relevant to the show tonight. All comments are welcome. And of course, if you are watching the live stream after the event has been posted, then get down into the comments section, let me know what you thought about tonight's show. And finally, if you enjoy, generally, what we do here on Bandido Talks, if you think there's value, something interesting to be taken from what we do here, there's value, some useful insight, then feel free to subscribe to the Bandido Talks channel. As I've already said, we are always live every Friday, Saturday and Sunday at 7 p.m. Irish time here on YouTube. So you will always have 3 live shows every week, providing no technological gremlins get in the road of things. Cue last night's episode. But of course, we have those 3 live shows. We always have an upload every Tuesday. It could be with a guest. It could be a best bits compilation. We always have an upload on Tuesday, and then we have our 3 live shows Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 7 p.m. here on YouTube. Last night's show was a really good show. Despite the gremlins in the live stream tried to derail us, they were unsuccessful, those gremlins. We ended up coming on a little late. We were an hour late trying to get things sorted out with the live stream, but it was a really good episode. A really good episode, episode 14. It was called Wait, It's a False Widow. That was the name of our show last night. I'm not going to do any sort of a recap. I would encourage you after tonight's live stream, of course, if you haven't seen episode 14, which was last night's show, I would encourage you to watch it. A lot of very interesting things were covered, and I think there's value in that particular episode, just like there'll be value tonight, because we have episode 15, News on the Tube. So with all of that said, let us get into tonight's show. Episode 15, News on the Tube. For any of our new viewers, just to give a little brief breakdown, what we're going to do, I've kind of said it already, but I'll say it again, just so that we're nice and clear about what News on the Tube is. News on the Tube, it is our Saturday and Sunday segment that we do here on Bandido Talks. And what do? We go to the Bandido's phone. We go to his Google Chrome browser. And normally when the Bandido goes into his Google Chrome browser, he is met with a whole bunch of standard media articles. And what we do on this little Saturday and Sunday segment, News on the Tube, is we take standard media articles and we get in underneath the surface, in underneath the headline, and see what are the lessons that we can extract from these articles and apply to our own existence. That's what we're going to do. So let's get straight into article number 1. Of course, I will check the live chat periodically, and of course at the end of the show I'll go down through any comments, any queries, any questions that we have. We'll do that at the end of the show when we've covered all of our media articles. But let's get into media article number 1. Let's see, this is always exciting. It's always exciting for me because I do not know what is going to greet me. So let's see what we have. Let's go into the Google Chrome browser. Let's see. Okay, so our first story is from The Independent. Now, let me just see, are we going to be able to read this? Let's have a look. Everything looks to be working. So let's go with the headline first. The headline is as follows. This is news item number 1. Billie Eilish lashes out at, quote, pathetic Elon Musk as he nears trillionaire status. The richest man in the world is on his way to becoming even richer. Oh dear. Some other rich people aren't happy with the other rich people. Let's get into this story a little bit more. So let's read the first few paragraphs. Billie Eilish is once again using her platform to call out the extremely wealthy, this time targeting Elon Musk, who is on his way to becoming the world's first trillionaire. In a recent Instagram story, the heavily acclaimed, quote, birds of a feather pop star, 23 years of age, reshared a graphic from the activist group My Voice, My Choice, which analysed the numerous ways Musk could utilise his money to do good in the world. The group claimed that Musk could put his fortune toward humanitarian relief efforts, including spending $40 billion annually to end world hunger by 2030 and paying $1 to $2 billion each year to save all 10,443 critically endangered species. Okay, I have read enough. I think those 2 paragraphs are sufficient to get into tonight's story. So Billie Eilish is back again. Catherine Connolly, the President of Ireland, she's featured multiple times here on Bandido Talks. Billie Eilish makes her second appearance. She's in the news again. This time she's criticising Elon Musk. So we get the gist of this article. Let me spell it out for you folks. Let me make it nice and clear. So here we have Billie Eilish, a multi-millionaire, criticising Elon Musk, who is a multi-billionaire and apparently, allegedly approaching trillionaire status. So, this is interesting. We have a multi-millionaire, Billie Eilish, hundreds of millions in the bank account. Hundreds of millions. She's on her way to become a billionaire. And she's got a beef with Elon Musk. She thinks that it's ridiculous. She even called him, I think, pathetic. In Billie Eilish's own words. She says that Elon Musk is pathetic. What a pathetic individual for having so much money. And this is great. I want to read this out again. So, Billie Eilish is calling out Elon Musk. And the reason why she's calling him out is because she thinks that Elon Musk should be sharing his wealth more. So there's an implicit assumption here that Elon Musk isn't actually doing anything valuable for the planet. Because, as it says here, this graphic that Billie Eilish reshared from the activist group My Voice, My Choice details the numerous ways Musk could utilise his money to do good in the world. So notice the implicit assumption here, folks, already. This graphic, My Choice, whatever the fuck it is, what is it? My Voice, My Choice, some activist group that Billie Eilish has a fucking pogo over. Clearly is a big fan of this activist group, resharing their graphic. So notice that the implicit assumption here is, this My Voice, My Choice activist group is making it out that Elon Musk could use his money to do some good in the world. With the implicit assumption being, he isn't currently doing any good in the world. So he should think about using his extraordinary wealth to actually do something good in the world. Isn't that interesting? That there's an implicit assumption that he isn't actually doing anything useful in the world, and that according to this activist organisation, whoever they are, since when did they become an authority on how one should use their wealth? We could go down that rabbit hole. Are they the world's authority on how people should use their wealth? Well, that's a separate discussion perhaps, but it's interesting. I want to read this out again. So this activist group, My Voice, My Choice, these are the ways that this activist group thinks that Elon Musk could use his wealth, and the specific quantities of money that they would perhaps recommend for Elon Musk to donate. Let's have a little read at this again. The group claimed, so the activist group, My Voice, My Choice, this group claimed that Musk could put his fortune toward humanitarian relief efforts, including spending $40 billion annually to end world hunger by 2030. Oh, I'm sure that'll end world hunger. Or, of course, paying $1 to $2 billion each year to save all 10,443 critically endangered species. Now, folks, if you are familiar in any way with Bandido Talks, this particular show. And if you're familiar in any way with my thoughts towards, let's just say, looking after number one, I want to make something clear. If I was approaching trillionaire status, me, the Bandido, if I was approaching trillionaire status, I can guarantee you one thing. I would be sharing 0% of my wealth for any humanitarian cause or any activist group. 0. Oh, you're very selfish. Oh, you don't care about other people in the world? Oh, you're such a selfish individual. You don't care about the collective human race. You are correct. I look after number one first. It's not that I don't care about people. It's just I care more about me being looked after for and catered for first before I think of other people. So I'm selfish. You could call me selfish. I'm happy to be labelled a self-confessed selfish git. I've said it once, I will say it again. So if I had all of this money, the last thing I would be thinking is donating it to some humanitarian cause. Now you may say, why would I have such a strange approach? Well, think about it, folks. Some people might call it a strange approach to wealth and wealth distribution. Why would I not be so keen to distribute my wealth? Well, this is the thing. When I see an article like this, I find it really amusing that we have Billie Eilish, who has many millions in the bank account. Many millions. Criticizing somebody else who has a few more squillions than she has. Do I smell virtue signaling? I'm getting a waft of virtue signaling. Yeah, just a big waft has blown into the studio here. Are we trying to make a point to the public? Is Billie Eilish trying to position herself in a morally superior position than Elon Musk? Is she trying to make it out that she is Mother Teresa here on planet Earth? Could we make that argument? Is she taking the moral high ground? Look at me, I donate to these causes. Climate change, we need to fix the climate. We need to look out for the endangered species. We need to end world hunger. Isn't it really interesting, folks, that we have Billie Eilish talking about all of these things? And yet, the very amusing thing, and I think this is what I think of when I see an article like this, the amusing thing is, Billie Eilish is talking about saving the endangered species, worrying about climate change, humanitarian causes, and world hunger. Would Billie Eilish like to explain to us all, why is the world in this state? Why is there world hunger in the first place? Why is there world hunger? Why are the species endangered? Why are we in a position where we have countries in 2025, in the modern age, we have countries that are struggling, that are on the poverty line, we could say, that are struggling with something as basic as clean water and good healthy chow. Why is the world in this state of affairs? Billy, would you like to inform us as to why? Let's delve into human history, Billy. Tell us how. What reading have you done, Billy? Go on, inform us. Why is the world currently in this state? You are advocating that the wealthy elite, the Elon Musks of this world, it's not good enough that Elon Musk is providing valuable services to people. He has Tesla. He does valuable things, we could argue. You know, he sends rockets up to space. Some people are going to be divided on Elon Musk. He acquired the X platform. He seems to have been an advocate for free speech, we could say. He acquired X. He reinstated a whole bunch of different profiles on X that were previously banned. So when I look at Elon Musk, I look and say, well, he seems like he's up for entertaining discussions with controversial people. He's not up for banning people per se. He took the X platform. He provided accounts that were banned previously, perhaps unfairly, and he's now allowing them to speak. He has Tesla. He has businesses. Does he have an extraordinary amount of money? Yes, he does. He does. Am I here to criticize Elon Musk because he has trillions? The reality is, there are lots of wealthy people in the world. From my perspective, whether you have millions, billions, or trillions, I don't give a shit. If you are in the millions, you are very wealthy. Is there really much of a difference between having 50 million of a net worth and 20 billion? Is there really a difference? When you get to this level of wealth, is there really a difference? Why should Elon Musk be singled out as pathetic in Billie Eilish's words? Why is he pathetic and all the other people who have billions and all the other people who have hundreds of millions, are they pathetic too? Are they pathetic? They have lots of money. Why single out Elon Musk? There it is again. There's that smell. Do I smell virtue signaling again? Maybe it's just my nose. I know, folks, you're watching. It's a live stream. You can't smell what it's like here in the studio. But I can just smell virtue signaling. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have COVID. Maybe I have COVID. And I'm not smelling correctly. Maybe my nose is blocked. Who knows? But it's giving me, I've got this sense of virtue signaling. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But this is the thing. When you've acquired this much wealth, I find it amusing when you have wealthy people criticizing other wealthy people. Now, in previous episodes of Bandido Talks, we've talked about how when people donate to charities or activist groups like My Voice, My Choice, we of course had an interesting discussion last week, maybe the week before, about donations being tax-free. Just throwing that out there. Donations, when you donate money, it is tax-free. When you're very rich, when you're very wealthy, and you make these donations like Billie Eilish likes to publicly tell us all that she donates lots of money to climate change charities, to humanitarian causes. She's very keen to end world hunger. She thinks Elon Musk is pathetic for having more money than her. This is the thing, folks. I see this article. I see it, and the reality is, we have Billie Eilish, who has a lot of money. We have Elon Musk, who has a lot of money. From my perspective, I don't feel an obligation to project my worldview onto somebody else. I don't ever feel the need to do that. Why should I be trying to project and force people into seeing the world the way I see it? People should be free to do what they wish, as long as they are not hurting other people, as long as they are not being very unreasonable humans. If people have a lot of money, like Elon Musk, and they decide that they don't want to donate to some humanitarian cause, we should not be automatically assuming that they are a bad person. We shouldn't be assuming that they are pathetic. And this is the interesting thing. I think this is the lesson, perhaps we could say, from this story. We see Billie Eilish, who's extremely wealthy. And what does Billie Eilish really do? We've talked about this before. She's a pop star. She's an influencer. She writes songs. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Well done, Billie. What a contribution to humanity. You've wrote a song called, what was it? Birds of a Feather. Well done. Elon Musk has lots of money also. He decides to create Tesla. He decides to create SpaceX. He decides to acquire X. He does different things with his money. He provides value in that way. Shouldn't everybody, Elon Musk included, be entitled to use their wealth however they want to use it without being labelled as pathetic? Shouldn't anybody who has millions or billions or trillions or hundreds of thousands, shouldn't those people who have that money, whatever the quantity is, shouldn't those people be allowed to use the money however they want without being frowned upon, without having to stir up at some individual like Billie Eilish, taking the moral high ground on the moral mountain, stirring down with her big snobby nose going, oh, you're pathetic because you have lots of money and you don't donate it to humanitarian causes. You don't care about the endangered species on the planet, all 10,000 of them. You don't care about world hunger. If you gave away your billions of money, it's not as if she's just asking for a bit of money. She wants them to donate billions. This group, My Voice, My Choice, this graphic, they are saying, oh, well, he should be using billions of his money to donate to these causes. Folks, listen to this. If there's ever an example of, number one, an individual taking the moral superior high ground, in this case Billie Eilish, with her, one could argue, virtue signalling, I can smell it again, trying to make it out that she is holier than thou, that she is Mother Teresa. So we've got this individual taking the moral high ground. Look, I donate, why aren't you donating? And then, of course, we've got this sort of imposing of one's worldview onto another. Why is Billie Eilish imposing her worldview onto Elon Musk? Why is this activist group imposing their worldview onto Elon Musk? When somebody tries to impose anything onto you, it doesn't feel good. Imagine somebody really wanted you to, I don't know, say for example, go into town with them to do some shopping. So let's imagine your friend says, yo, Mr. Bandido, I want you to come into town with me today to do some shopping. And let's say the Bandido listens to that suggestion and says, no, the Bandido wants to do Bandido Talks and he wants to play his guitar and write his fictional novel. Now imagine this individual who wants to go into town and do shopping with me says, no, you have to come into town and do shopping. And they start tugging on my arm. In other words, they try to impose, no, I want you to come into town. They start tugging on my arm. I turn around and say, what are you doing? Go away. You're invading my space. Go away. I want to do whatever I want to do with my own time in this case. So in that example, I want to use my time to do Bandido Talks, the show. I want to play my guitar and I want to write my fictional novel. That's how I want to use my time. You need to stop imposing your worldview or your interests or your passions or whatever the fuck it is you want to do on me. Stop tugging on my arm. This is no different. We're just substituting time for money. Here we have Billie Eilish taking the moral high ground, trying to make it out like she is some superior human being to Elon Musk because she donates to some organization, some humanitarian cause. She takes this position of moral superiority as if she's Mother Teresa, as if she's better. She's a better human than Elon Musk. And not only that, she then tries to impose her worldview onto Elon Musk and other wealthy people. And this charity, My Voice, My Choice, imposing their worldview onto Elon Musk and other wealthy people. Imposing, trying to say, no, you have millions. It's only fair that you share your millions. It's only fair. You should be distributing your wealth. And while all of these people, Billie Eilish and this activist group, my voice, my choice. They're all very quick to criticize Elon Musk or other wealthy people who happen to not want to donate their money to these causes because they are free sovereign individuals. They have their own money. They're entitled to do whatever they want with their own money, just like I'm entitled to do what I want with my money and with my time. Nobody should be imposing their worldview onto me and dictating how I use my money and how I use my time. But it's funny, these people not only take, number one, a morally superior position, trying to make it out like they are superior human beings to somebody like Elon Musk. Not only do they do that, and not only, number two, do they then, try to make it out as if they are in some way doing a service to humanity that Elon Musk is not doing. Not only do they do this, and not only do they try to impose their worldview, how they see the world, how they think wealth should be distributed, how people should behave, how people should use their money, how people should use their time. Not only do they do these two things, take the moral high ground and then impose their worldview, but then the laughable thing is, this is number three, the laughable thing then is, they don't even explain why the world is in this position in the first place. If we're going to start criticizing other wealthy people for how they should use their wealth, for how they should use their time, well then I would like a very thorough explanation, Billie Eilish, as to why these animals are endangered, as to why there is hunger in the world. Do you seriously think that Elon Musk, in this case, is pathetic because he won't donate his money to these humanitarian causes? What about the government, Billy? Why are we picking on Elon Musk? What about the governments around the world? What about those people? Could the governments not help with these humanitarian crises that we have around the world? Why pick on Elon? Just because he has a lot of money? What, he has some obligation to humanity now? He has some obligation, better still. What, Elon Musk has some obligation to you, Billie Eilish? Elon Musk has some obligation to what? This activist organisation, My Voice, My Choice? He has no obligation whatsoever to you or to this activist group. People are free to use their money and use their time however they want. And they shouldn't be criticised by people like Billie Eilish or this My Voice, My Choice activist group just because they want to use their wealth and their time in a different way to how they want to invest their time and energy. Billie Eilish is a free sovereign individual. If she wants to donate $11.5 million to a climate change charity or organisation, how about it? You fire away. You do your donations. I don't really care. But I find it interesting, and this is where I think the lesson is in this article. Isn't it interesting how people, number one, take these morally superior stances over other people? Isn't it interesting how people try to impose their worldview on other people about how they should use their time and money? And isn't it interesting about how these people who are making these demands of other people won't actually give a coherent explanation as to why the world is in this position? Would we like to provide some details? Why is there hunger in the world? Who might be responsible for these countries being in a perpetual cycle of poverty? Anybody like to delve into human history? Why are some countries wealthy? Why are some countries not wealthy? Bit of an explanation would be required there if you're going to start imposing your worldview on other people and taking morally superior positions. So I think that's the lesson, folks. When I see this article, I think to myself that it's very important for us all to remember we are all free, sovereign individuals. We all have a certain amount of wealth. We all have a certain amount of time left on the planet. And I think the lesson is, folks, for us, is to always remember that trying to impose our worldview on someone is, number one, a waste of time because they're probably not going to listen. And number two, one could argue that it's a bit of a unreasonable way to go through your life's existence. imposing your will or trying to impose your worldview or your will on other people. I think it's unreasonable. I think that argument could be made. Just like I said, if my friend wants to go shopping and I don't, and this person imposes themselves upon me, trying to tug me into town, I'm going to say, get out of my space, leave me alone. I want to use my time doing other things that doesn't involve shopping with you. And I think that is what we can learn here. We can learn that everybody has the right to spend their wealth and their time however they want to spend it. And they should not be frowned upon or be called pathetic by other people who are also extremely wealthy, ironically, for simply not sharing the worldview of these critical people. Okay, so that's story number one. Billie has made it into Bandido Talks once again. She's really on the rampage here, criticizing these wealthy people. I'm just going to say it again. There's such a smell of virtue signaling in the studio. Maybe the stench will diffuse its way out of the studio when I move on to the next story. I'll let you know, folks. But I'm getting a strong smell of virtue signaling. Don't know where it's coming from. Okay, that's story number one. Let's move on to news item number two and see what's going to greet us. So that was from The Independent. And is The Independent going to allow me out of the article? It is. Okay. So here we go. Now, let's have a look and see what our next story is. So this one is called the newsletter. It's going to make me accept something here, is it? It wants me to subscribe. We have to get rid of that article. We ain't subscribing. Free articles only here on Bandido Talks. Okay. Let's have a look here. So this one's from the BBC. The BBC. BBC's had a tough time in the last week or two. Deceptive editing. Oh dear. Tim Davie has resigned. Director General of the BBC. It's been a tough week. But we're going to read this BBC article. Let's see what it's going to throw our direction. Okay, so let's read out the headline. South Africa to investigate, quote, mystery of plane load of Palestinians. Okay, let's read the first few paragraphs here. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. One of those names again, folks. I did my best. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says there will be an investigation into the, quote, mysterious arrival of a chartered plane carrying 153 Palestinians from Gaza into the country. The group arrived at OR Tambo International Airport, but were initially refused entry and were stuck in the plane for more than 10 hours as they, quote, did not have the customary departure stamps in their passports, local authorities said. Most were eventually allowed in after intervention from a local charity and because of the government's, quote, empathy and compassion, Ramaphosa said. The circumstances of their departure from Gaza and travel to South Africa remain unclear. And it says here, South Africa has maintained strong support for the Palestinian cause throughout the war between Hamas and Israel in Gaza. Okay. I think we get the gauge. We get a general gauge of what's happening here. So basically in South Africa, 153, I think. Yes, so a plane carrying 153 Palestinians arrived in South Africa. And is it the president of South Africa? Yes, the South African president, Cyril, says that there will be an investigation into this mysterious arrival. So nobody knows how this plane of 153 passengers from Palestine arrived in South Africa. Now, I have to say, the first thing that comes to my mind when I actually read this story, the first thing that comes to my mind is, How the hell did somebody not know that this plane had arrived? Think about this. Think about aviation, folks. Think about the air traffic controllers. Think about the detail that goes into tracking every plane on the planet. Think of this. It's a very detailed, and it's a very, we could say the aviation industry, it has to be super detailed. It has to be super meticulously run because we have all these planes in the sky and we can't afford to have planes flying to locations when the country, in this case, that's going to be receiving the flight doesn't even know how it's got there. The first thing I'm going to say here is this is weird. In the aviation industry, let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of why I think this is weird. So recently, in the last few months, and I don't know a tremendous amount of detail about this, but it's going to help illustrate why I find this article weird. Why I find it weird that this plane full of 153 Palestinians that took off from Gaza and arrived in South Africa, I'm going to explain why I find this weird. That nobody seems to know how this plane has landed in South Africa. It mysteriously landed. You gotta love the word mysterious, when people use the word mysterious. Anyway, here's the example I'm going to use to illustrate why I find this weird. So in the last few months, there was this Instagram guy. Now, I don't know what his name is. You'll be able to probably find this. There was this guy on Instagram. I think he was maybe 19 or 20, something like that. He was some young dude. And he's a pilot, okay? So he knows how to fly a plane. Now, not a big commercial airline. He just knows how to fly a wee... I don't even know what the name for it would be, but he knows how to fly his own little small plane. I don't even know what it was called. I don't know the specific model of the plane. But he was able to get into this small little aircraft and fly from country to country. And the whole point was, this guy, he had an Instagram channel and he was trying to raise money for some cancer charity. And his objective was he wanted to fly to every continent. So this is what he was doing. We have this Instagrammer who's able to fly this small plane. It just accommodates him. And the goal is he wants to fly to every continent in the world in order to raise money for this cancer charity of his choice. So this guy, there was no problem. He was flying from continent to continent, okay? But all of a sudden, as soon as he starts to approach Antarctica, for some reason, he gets into a bit of bother with the authorities. As soon as this Instagrammer, who's flying around all of these different continents to raise money for this cancer charity, as soon as he starts to approach Antarctica, all of a sudden, Chile and the military base that Chile has on Antarctica picks up the fact that he's approaching Antarctica in his little plane. And all of a sudden, he's told that he has to forcibly land. He's then held at this Chilean airbase in Antarctica. He's not allowed to leave. He's eating soup and beans for the next few days. And then he has to leave Antarctica in a different plane and not in his own plane. Why am I saying this? Well, the reason why I'm saying this is because clearly this young man was being monitored. He was being monitored. He was flying his plane around, and I'm not saying there's a problem with that per se. I understand that there are a lot of planes in the sky, and it's important to know who's flying and who's not. Because if you've got a flight in the air and nobody's monitoring this flight, or they don't know how it's mysteriously taken off and landed in another country, then that means you've got a plane flying through the roadways or the airways of the planet that's unchecked. This could obviously lead to a catastrophe. It goes without saying. So this young man, this young Instagrammer, who was flying around all of these continents, as soon as he approaches Antarctica, he's clearly being monitored, and he is immediately picked up, and he is told in no uncertain terms that he has breached some sort of aviation protocol, and that he has to land his plane, he has to go into this Chilean airbase, he has to wait there, and then he is very promptly removed from Antarctica. Now listen to that, folks. You've got this young man flying around in his little plane. He was being monitored, because as soon as he went to Antarctica, There was a whole hullabaloo made. Oh, he's going to Antarctica. Well, we can't have him going to Antarctica for some reason. They must have been terribly afraid for his health. Maybe they thought his nipples were going to fall off because it's so cold in Antarctica. So they said, no, you have to ground your plane. You have to spend some time in this Chilean military air base. And then you're going to very politely and calmly leave Antarctica. Okay. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because this young man was clearly being monitored. And rightfully so, we could say. I've already explained why I think it's a good idea that if you're taking a plane into the sky, that you ought to be monitored. Air traffic controllers and the aviation authorities should know who is in the air, who is flying at any one time, for obvious reasons. There could be a catastrophe. So that's fine. But notice, folks, we've just had a plane full of not one person. Okay, so we've got this young man, this young Instagrammer, one person. They've honed in on him, and they've managed to figure out that he's flying somewhere where he shouldn't be flying for some reason. Antarctica, we got a bit touchy around there for some reason. Maybe it's to do with the bad weather. Who knows? Who knows? But the point is, he was flying towards Antarctica, just him and his plane, and he was immediately picked up by the aviation authorities and told that he needed to ground his plane. Yet here we have a flight, an airplane, full of not one, but 150 Palestinians that has left Gaza and arrived in South Africa, and nobody in South Africa seems to know how this plane has mysteriously arrived in South Africa. Does this seem a little bit weird? Does it seem a little bit weird that an Instagrammer who's flying solo in his plane approaches Antarctica and he's immediately picked up by aviation authorities? Yet here we have a flight with 153 Palestinians arriving in South Africa, and nobody knows how it has arrived. It's a mystery. Interesting and weird is what I would say to that. It doesn't make much sense to me. Either the air traffic controllers in South Africa, or who are monitoring this particular route from Gaza to South Africa, they must have all went for an early lunch break. They all must have forgot to come back to their air traffic control posts, because nobody seems to know how this plane has got from Gaza to South Africa. It's a mystery. So what's the lesson here, folks? What's the lesson from this story? Well, maybe we could say that the lesson is, when you read a story like this and you see the words mysterious or unusual, in this case it's a mystery. When we see something like this, and this goes back to last night's episode, where we were talking about how to process information. When you see something like this, the first thing you need to do is literally, and I know this sounds so cliched, but you literally need to engage your brain. Just engage your brain. Don't just read it and go, huh? All right, next article. Okay. They just arrived there. Engage your brain and think through what you've just read. You have a flight with 153 Palestinians that has arrived in South Africa, and nobody knows how it has arrived. Immediately, you should be thinking, that is strange. Because aviation authorities around the world, it's very important that our aviation authorities know who is flying from where to where. Again, for obvious reasons. Because we may look up to the sky and think, oh, there's a big empty space up there. Well, it's not as empty as you think, because all you have to do is go online and look at one of these plane tracker maps, and you'll see the enormous amount of planes that are flying in the sky at any one moment. So we do want to be able to track who is in the sky, who's flying from where to where. So the fact that we have a plane that has made its way from Gaza to South Africa, and for some reason, and I'm going to quote the article directly, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says there will be an investigation into the mysterious arrival of a chartered plane carrying 153 Palestinians from Gaza into the country. So nobody knows. And again, let me read out the article. This is the article. This is the article's words. The circumstances of their departure from Gaza and travel to South Africa remain unclear. So according to the article, there has literally been a plane with 153 Palestinians flying in the sky, and nobody knew that this plane was flying in the sky from Gaza to South Africa. Yet we have an Instagrammer who's flying from continent to continent to raise money for cancer. He decides solo to fly in his little plane up towards Antarctica, and immediately he is hauled in. No, you can't go there because there's a restricted airspace. No, you can't go there. You must ground your plane. So him, as an Instagrammer, just doing this bit of plane hopping, essentially, this bit of traveling from one continent to the next, he approaches Antarctica and he is picked up immediately. Yet here we have this flight. Nobody knows how it departed. Nobody knows why it's arrived in South Africa. So this is the thing, folks. Engage your noggin. You don't even need to know about the Instagrammer that I've told you about. The fact that you know that now, you should be listening to that and going, yeah, that is kind of weird. And you can look that up. You can look up about the Instagrammer going from continent to continent and about how he wasn't able to fly to Antarctica without being detected. Yet here we have this plane, undetected. Nobody knows anything about it. Really? Let's do a little experiment before we move on. Not an experiment. Let's just look something up here. I'm curious. I'm curious to know how many satellites are orbiting Earth. How many satellites are orbiting Earth? Because, of course, we are using all these things in the aviation sector, I would assume. We use these in order to track planes because there's going to be some interaction between the planes, obviously, and the technology that we have in orbit around Earth and elsewhere. So let's just see how many satellites are actually in orbit around Earth. Let's have a look, because I'm going to imagine there are a lot. So let's see what the rough estimate would be. So how many satellites orbit Earth? Let's get a look at this. Okay. How many satellites orbit Earth? There are over 11,000 active satellites orbiting Earth, with a total of 12,952 satellites in orbit as of late June 2025. Now, isn't that interesting? We have over 12,000 satellites that are orbiting Earth. And I'm sure these satellites are involved in the aviation sector. And miraculously, with all of these satellites, with all of the modern day technology that we use for tracking planes and in the aviation sector, with all of this technology, we are able to detect some kid flying solo in a plane approaching Antarctica. We can detect him, but we cannot detect a plane with 153 Palestinians.